Welcome back, everyone. I'm James Binello.
And I'm Peter Pinedo.
And we are the Pinedo brothers, filmmakers, Catholic artists, living and working here in Los Angeles for the time being.
For now.
For now. For the time being, because this place is getting crazier and crazier. And we're working to revitalize the world of Catholic art. That means if you're tired of this leftist liberal agenda that's pounded down your throat by every CBS and ABC and NBC and Fox show that you watch, and also Disney Plus, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix, everyone. If you're tired of that agenda that doesn't align with your values and you're sick of it, and you also don't want to just sit back and be preached to by kind of, let's face it, soppy faith-based fare, you might want to check out what we're doing, because we are providing entertainment that doesn't shove some sort of worldview that will destroy the world and family down your throat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anyway, we got we got a good show for you guys today. Today we're talking about Fortitude and how that has that virtue has inspired a scene in particular, or it's not just a scene, it inspired the whole movie, but we're going to just examine one scene from the film that Peter and I made called The Extrovert, and you can watch it on Amazon.com, Amazon Prime, and we are then going to also watch a film called, or a scene from a film called No Highway in the Sky, which also really inspired The Extrovert by showcasing a character that really embodied the virtue of fortitude. It's going to be a lot to watch and then a lot to talk about, so I think we'll dive right in.
Yeah.
What do you think, Pete?
Sounds good. Got some good stuff for you today.
Yes, sir. Okay. So how about we start with with the old stuff? Go with No Highway in the Sky.
Old Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah, Peter, can you find it? While I introduce the film, can you look it up on Google?
No Highway in the Sky, right?
Yeah, No Highway in the Sky, starring Jimmy Stewart.
All right.
So this is a film that I'm going to switch to his. Yeah, why don't you pop up that poster there so that they can take a look at it. It came out in the 50s. It was a film, Marlene Dietrich and James Stewart. And, a little tidbit about this film that's super interesting. This is actually one of the few films where the main character, James Stewart, doesn't get with the main female lead, Marlene Dietrich.
Interesting.
She wasn't even that likable of a character. She was somewhat likable, but in any case, that's neither here nor there. That it makes the movie a little bit more of a surprise, and it is a very surprising movie. Highly recommend. It shows Jim Stewart as a bumbling analyst / theoretical physicist that works for an airline, and he basically spends all his day in a lab stress testing airplanes to see if they'll fail. One day he gets let out of the lab because he finds out a shocking truth that the flagship of this airline, like the best and the proudest plane, will pretty much spontaneously fall apart once it hits a certain amount of miles. And when he finds this out, he jets out of the lab. He notifies everyone, and he's flying in to go report his findings. And guess what plane he's flying in?
The big main plane, the Titanic plane.
Yeah, the Titanic plane. He's flying in it, and so he asks, "Okay, how many miles has this been going? Has this been in the air?" And of course he finds out that many miles, we're about to fall into the sky. Fell out of the sky. Do you know any idea what's happening here? And
not a bad impression.
I love Jimmy Stewart. So, in any case, no offense to Jimmy and Jimmy fans with that impression. I actually love this actor. He finds out that it hits the miles, that it's about to fall out of the sky, and he pretty much puts everybody onto an uproar the captain says, okay, we're going to land the first thing we can land, and we're going to go through a full check. But he's really angry at Jimmy for getting everyone in this uproar because he doesn't believe him. Nobody believes him. And so we'll watch a scene about what's happening while Jimmy's basically under a sort of arrest, and they're checking out the plane in this after making an emergency landing. And it's a good scene. We won't say any more about it. What do you think, Pete?
Let's go for it.
I brought your bag in from the plane. You really do travel light, don't you?
You think the captain's going on?
I suppose so, unless they find something wrong. Now, come on while it's hot.
But they won't find anything wrong. I told him that. I wish people didn't think they knew everything.
You really believe it's going to crash whether they find anything or not?
Yes, I do believe that. Well, I've told him. He'll have to make his own decision now.
Just one thing I'd like to get clear. How sure are you about this? You said it was going to happen last night, and it didn't. And you said you really didn't have any proof.
Well, I'm quite sure. I've worked it out through 3 different channels, and the results all agree. Of course, I won't know until the evidence of my test. But I suppose if the captain goes ahead, Miss Teasdale will go too.
I expect she will.
I think she believed me for a little time last night, and I don't think she did.
You know, it'd be nice if you and Captain Samuelson could argue this out and get together on whether it's going to fall apart or not. This is getting cold.
That plane in Labrador, that was proof in a way. I suppose there was a stewardess on that one, too.
Yes. Yes, I knew them both very well.
Couldn't you believe me, Miss Corder? You've been so very kind, and you ought to live and get married and bring up a family. You'd be very good at that.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Honey. You said that just about as nicely as anybody could. You know, I'd almost not go if it would help you stop worrying, but it's my job, and there's no way of making sure, and I don't think it's right to walk out on something like that. Do you know what I mean? I think everything will be all right if Captain Samuelson says so. He knows a great deal about aircraft. Now, why don't you eat that up? It'll make you feel better. All right?
Attention, please. Passengers, Reindeer Flight 26. Please be ready to board your plane in 20 minutes for the flight to Montreal. Flight 26, please be ready to board your plane in 20 minutes for Montreal.
Well, I'd better be going. I won't lock you in if you promise not to speak to any of the passengers.
I won't.
Well, goodbye, Mr. Honey. We'll see you in Montreal. And please don't worry.
No danger, of course, once we're in the air.
Well, that's okay. Keep a man standing by the lever here on both taking off and landing, so nobody catches the coat or anything.
Right, I'll see to that. What are you doing here?
Captain, I just have to...
Well, now that you're here, I want you to listen. I've told the inspector here all that you told me. Now, if you've anything to add, I want to hear it now. And I want him to hear it.
No, sir, I don't have anything to add.
As London apparently doesn't take her opinion sufficiently seriously to order this aircraft grounded, I'm flying around to Montreal. And I want you to get off and stay off.
Well, Captain, you mustn't take off in this airplane. You can't do it. Believe me, mathematics is a very exact science.
You've explained that already, Mr. Hunt.
Captain, it'll be just like the one in Labrador. The stewardess, all these people.
Not for the last time,
Captain,
Mr. Hammond.
Leave them alone, you fool! Got the plow!
And we're back. Jimmy did it.
Jimmy.
I just folded it up and just laid it flat on the ground like that. So that was Jimmy taking matters into his own hands.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make the we'll talk about the. How about we talk about the extrovert?
Yeah.
and
And then
introduce
we'll
that,
tie it all-
and
yeah.
put it all together.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, The Extrovert, a film that Peter and I released 2017. Is that right? 2017. Why don't you pop it up, Pete? That way they can see the poster as well. And a film about, we talked about it in an earlier episode. I apologize. We're talking about the same thing again. It just, this scene really
There's so
spoke
much
to
to unpack.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
We
So
can't talk about it enough.
well, thank you. So The Extrovert, there's our eye poster there, which definitely draws attention. But it's a thriller that is about a man that's having an out-of-body experience, and the only person that he's wandering around this hospital, and he sees himself lying on the bed and having, he's on life support, not able to, but he sees how his wife is struggling and how the doctors are talking about what they're going to do, and he can't communicate with anybody. Then he finds out, oh my gosh, they're going to pull, they make the decision, they're going to pull the plug on him. Mm-hmm. He's going to die, and he's going to watch himself die. But he finds an advocate. There's one person in that hospital that can listen to, that can actually hear him. He can speak to this person, this spirit. It's the hospital chaplain. Unfortunately, this man is not happy with God, not happy with... He's one of those angry atheists that somehow at the same time manages to be angry at God and not believe in God at the same time, which is quite a trick, but you see it quite often. And so that leaves the chaplain with kind of a quandary here, because he knows this guy is not ready to die, and he knows that if they pull the plug on him, he will die, and with all this anger and hatred, it's not going to go well for him in the afterlife. So this hospital chaplain is faced with the decision of, do I let him die, or do I try to act about it? And so he comes to the hospital room on the day that they're going to pull the plug, and he's decided why don't you see what he's decided?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right.
May I come in? What do you want?
Yeah, come in, Father.
Man, it really got me there, Father. What you come in here for, huh? Come here to gloat?
Thank you for coming back again today, Father.
It's my job to come when I'm called.
That's right.
So philosophical. Is just a time?
It's time, Father.
Time for what? To see me die?
Nurse, can you tell the doctor that I'm ready?
Martha, just listen to me. Don't do this. Okay, don't do this. We need to talk about this.
I've already decided this is what he wanted.
Oh, no, I do what I want. What are you talking about? He may have wanted to change his mind.
You have no idea about who he was. You have no idea what you wanted.
They're coming. Martha, please. I don't want to die. Okay? No. Send them away. Don't let them touch me. We just need a little time to talk. We need to talk.
Father, you're not making this any easier for me.
I know, but it's not my job to make it easier.
Okay, let's just get this over with.
We just need to talk a little time.
Sir, step aside. Come on, please.
Just don't let them touch me. Just don't let them touch me. Don't let them touch me. What are you doing? Don't leave me. Don't leave me when I need you the most. Don't leave me when I need you.
We need time to do our job, okay? It's okay.
Don't leave me here, okay? Don't leave me here when I need you the most. I'm not ready.
This is how I am to love him. This is how I am to love him. This is how I am to love him.
We all have our crosses. We all have our crosses to bear.
Brother, you will move. You will be removed. This is my job.
Voices. Voices. What's going on? Voices for the voiceless. What's going on in here?
Remove this man from my house.
Let's go. For the voiceless.
Time of death.
Whew.
It's an intense one.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite scenes of the movie. You really feel everything starting to come to a point right there. Big climax. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was the scene as we were shooting it. I was like, if we don't get this scene, we don't have a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's one of those that sometimes when you're shooting a scene, you're like, okay, it's with the feature, I found it's a war of attrition where you, at least when you're shooting on a micro budget with the little money and time that we had, you're like, okay, I only have X amount of time to get this scene, and that was no different for this one. But if I don't get this scene, for example, like other scenes, I would just get whatever you can get, and if it doesn't work, well, you move on. You'll figure it out in post, but you got to move on.
Yeah.
You got to move. And this is the one where it's like, no, I mean, we have to move on, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And
you got to take the time to actually, because I don't know if the viewers realize, but we shot this entire film like within the span of, what was it, a month or so?
Oh, it was less than a month.
It was under a month.
Nope.
And this kind of movie, a feature length takes months and months to film normally.
Yep. The majority of the filming took place over the space of was it 6 days or 4 days?
I don't remember.
You were too tired.
I was like drinking coffee and energy drinks, like going back and forth, and like, but it was a good time.
That's so funny. I didn't sleep hardly any, but I didn't drink a single cup of coffee during that shoot.
It was all artistic adrenaline.
I guess so. Whatever
Natural
it was.
adrenaline.
I mean, I can't get through most days these days without a cup of coffee, but I did not drink I didn't want a cup of coffee for that. I don't know why, but I didn't sleep much, but it was totally worth it. I would do something like that. I'd make a feature film in an instant again. That was fun. But what I was saying, we shot it mostly, I think it was 4 days, the majority, because it was shot over 2 Saturdays and Sundays, because that was when we had the location to shoot. It was almost all in hospital. Like 90% of the film was in a hospital. So that 90% we shot over 4 days, two sets of Saturdays and Sundays. And then the rest we sprinkled out during weekdays over a 2-week period. So I think, technically speaking, there was 10 shoot days, but there was 4 really full days, and then 6 like half-day sort of shoots that we. So if you want to look at that 90%, it was a 4-day shoot.
Yeah. See, I got you.
Any
Those
case,
were long days.
That's why you don't remember. What those 2 scenes are perfect examples of are characters that embody the virtue of fortitude, which is a very important virtue at any times, but now especially, it's important.
Yeah, I see the connection definitely for sure between the 2 clips that we just watched. How Jimmy, on the one hand, is very sure of what he knows, to be right. He's like, this I know is going to happen. I want to save these lives, and no one else will believe them. They all think he's crazy, and he's willing to look even crazier to save these people's lives, just despite them thinking that he's a madman. And the same kind of deal here with Father Peter. Here he knows he's the only one who can communicate with Thomas, and Thomas is not, at some point you kind of question, like, why is Father Peter so dedicated to helping him? Because Thomas is not like a nice guy. Mm-hmm. He's cursing him, and he is yelling and screaming at him, and Father Peter has the fortitude, like you're saying, to want to save his life anyway. Mm-hmm. Thomas is not really doing much for himself by being the way that he's being, but regardless of everybody in that room, Father Peter is wanting to save his life and is willing to look insane and crazy to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With much less apparent success than Jimmy had. Mm-hmm. What I love so much about both these characters is that they're both willing to brave the wrath of the Supreme Court mm-hmm. of popular opinion. Mm. And that's what we have in our culture today. Everyone is so afraid of popular opinion. Like if I had a dime for the amount of times I'm told, well, it's about the optics of it. I might disagree with how this goes out, but it's about the optics. We have to make sure that people don't perceive this the wrong way. It's gotten to a point, especially in this city, where it doesn't matter so much if it's right or wrong. It's what people will think when they see you do it or hear about you doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
Yeah, I think in this world today, oftentimes the mindset that you have to take, that you're kind of forced to take, is it doesn't matter so much what it is, but what it looks like. Oftentimes perception is more important than reality. So I'm right with you there. That's an interesting phrase that you use, though. Supreme Court of Popular Opinion. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that the highest rule in the land is no longer the president. It's no longer the Supreme Court or Congress or any branch of government. It's no longer the military. It's no longer the churches. It's whatever holds sway in popular opinion these days. For example, what's one of the bravest things that someone can do now? Bravest thing. It's like come out of the closet. Yeah. And ultimately it's nothing that's brave, because everyone thinks it's a positive thing. It's a good thing. You're patted on the back if you do that. Mm-hmm. That's what the extent of popular opinion has got to this point. It's at where you can do something that is not brave because everyone likes you doing it and praises you for doing it, and you're told that is what a brave thing is. Like, for example, I pulled up while we were watching the definition of fortitude. Strength of mind. This is according to the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Disagree with it if you wish, but strength of mind that enables a person to encounter danger or bear pain or adversity with courage. So what we see here with the Supreme Court of Popular Opinion is if you go against it, you're canceled. Mm-hmm. That's basically how I see it. It's some tribunal that's set up in an amorphous mass of what we are as a culture, and if you go against it, you are at any point judged. If you are at any point judged of doing something that is wrong in their mind, then you're canceled. And anything that it has no actual bearing on what morality is or any kind of set code. It's just whatever is popular at the time that is deemed right or wrong. And they won't even, it's unpopular to say it's right or wrong. You just know you're disapproved of if you do something mm-hmm. that they don't like. Yeah. But they wouldn't want to use the right or wrong term because, of course, everything is relative.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. It's a difficult worldview to hold because it always is in a point of self-contradictory.
Yeah, it sounds like having to live in a high school. It's like high school forever, where the cool people decide, what is what is acceptable, and if you say you have to always be treading on eggshells, like you can't say this, but you can say this, and you have to do this to look good, and blah blah blah. So yeah, it's like living in a world run by high school bullies. So that's rough.
But there are still those that are willing to go against the bullies. Which you're right. Everyone there. This is a bully culture, and it's so funny because we always talk up against bullies, and yet the moment someone says something that you don't agree with, everyone wants to bully you and shut you up and shut you down, make it impossible for you to earn a living, impossible for you to communicate with anyone. You're a pariah. It's like you're a leper. Mm-hmm. So it's way worse than any bullies of old might have done. The bullies of old might have broken your nose, but they weren't going to make you a social leper, mm-hmm. which is what we have now. But there are people that fight that, and that's what we wanted to have a character about in The Extrovert. That's who the priest that you saw, the hospital chaplain, that's what he embodied, that virtue. Now, everyone has these human virtues, prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude. They're all a part of, it's not, those are not Christian virtues. This is not something that we say just for Christians, but this is something that is completely human, that any good man, good woman can be found. And because we live by a moral code, we can use the term good because it actually carries weight for us. Yeah. But that is the type of hero that we want to have, and that's what I hope that people see with The Extrovert.
Mm-hmm. Someone who has fortitude. Yeah. But when you talk about the Supreme Court of popular opinion and how the world kind of tries to limit you, what do you mean by that, and how does that kind of relate to art? How do you make that connection?
Yeah, well, that's that's a really good point. When you're talking about freedom of speech, when you're talking about just think about what journalism is these days. I mean, like, forget about art for a moment. Just think about journalism. If you just look at what's happening on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I mean, any moment in time, if you say something that's contrary to what's popular, contrary to what their agenda is, which is, as far as we can tell, a leftist agenda, because the leftists are not the ones getting shut down. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of hate speech going on, and as long as it embodies one side of this debate, that's not shut down. We won't go into that anymore, because this conversation will get shut down. But when you think about it with art, you're looking at, Oscar Wilde said it best. He was like, I'm going to misphrase him, but basically he goes, there is nothing in art that the artist should not write about or talk about in his stories, as long as he does it well. As long as he actually creates a good story, as long as he creates a good character, as long as he creates whatever medium it works well in, then it's being done well. I mean, as long as that is objectively good, then everything is, all bets should be off. Mm-hmm. You are able to do whatever you want. And he was very unpopular for his time. He was very much a hedonist. He was also somewhat of a Catholic. But those two things combined in Protestant England, Puritan England, he
bode well.
He knew how to go against the court of popular opinion, just in the terms of wanting to tell good art. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're trying to do. We're not trying to push propaganda pieces, but at the same time, we want the freedom to be able to talk about a worldview and a mindset that's contrary to what most in our field have. Mm-hmm. Does that seem to make sense?
Yeah, I really like where you were going there with the Oscar Wilde phrase, quote, because I think we don't want to be misconstrued as like, we're not trying to push some kind of political right agenda from the right, I think good art, good storytelling it can be told by someone who's on the right or on the left. Politics is politics, but at the end of the day, if you're a good artist and you're a good storyteller, then you can tell a good you can make good art and tell good stories.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter so much what your political opinion is, but if you're trying to tell good stories, you're trying to get to truth, trying to communicate truth. You can, and that's another thing about the faith that we're always talking about, is that it allows you this freedom. You're not boxed into one political view or not, but you are, as long as you're still standing for what the church teaches, standing for truth. There is a objective truth, but there's still so much freedom of being able to live and operate in your life within that truth.
Mm. Well, what was it? I forget what saint said it, but avoid sin and do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really what the church teaches. Don't sin, but do whatever the heck you want. I'm reminded of the Screw Tape Letters, where if you're not familiar with the book, it's written by C.S. Lewis, and it's told from the perspective of a demon who is instructing a younger demon about how to basically pull souls down into hell. And so this older demon tells this younger demon, make sure the humans, us, make sure that they are always kept doing neither what they want nor what they ought. So at the end of their life, they look back and they say, I've wasted every moment of my life. Mm-hmm. And that's what the devil is trying to get us to do at all times, is like, don't have fun. Tempt you with the idea of having fun, but it's not real. It's not actual joy. That it doesn't give you something that you will feel good about. So don't ever feel good about anything, and then don't ever actually do something that is good. It's funny, the church is given this black eye of being this entity that has been promoting guilt for millennia. Mm-hmm. But in reality, it's the devil that promotes guilt more than anyone else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing about sin that I've kind of come to realize, just reflecting and through life experience, that you feel guilt, obviously for sin, but it's not from the perspective that you think it would come from. It's not from usually, like in sin, it's not, you don't feel guilty because I've broken the rules or things like that. It's because you feel you hear those voices inside your head. You're a terrible person. You've done this, and that's the trap, I think, of the devil, is that they want the demons in temptation. They want you to do these things, and then after you do it, they're like, haha, look at you are bad.
Yeah, you're irredeemable. You could never, there's no way you could ever actually be good. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Actually not sorry. Yeah, that's exactly, I feel the same way. And that's the same that I've experienced. But us as storytellers, we're working to actually, I think of ourselves as evangelists. We're spreading the good word, not by propaganda, but by just telling a point of view that is not told. Mm. Telling it by good art, by good stories, by good characters, good people striving to do good, often failing, just like the chaplain here. He seemed to fail pretty miserably, but still striving to do good. And still, wanting to do good for the good reasons. And then if we represent evil, we show that as evil. That's the big problem, because if you are just to represent truth, that is, represent art, you're going to be saying things that offends people. Because people are often offended by themselves. Like, someone will say something they're just angry about. They'll have a thought. That's what guilt is. Mm-hmm. So if you're out representing truth, you're going to offend people. There's no such thing as a safe place. There's no such thing. In fact, we need to be breaking down safe places through our art. That's what art is called to do. And so if we are out scared to brave the wrath of popular opinion, we're never going to create anything but propaganda for it. Mm. And it's not even going to be interesting Nazi propaganda level. It's going to be milk toast that is outdated 2 months later when popular opinion changes.
Mm. You got me there.
Anyway, we were talking for a long time. It's actually over the half hour. I apologize, folks, but there's a lot to unpack with this virtue, with the virtue of fortitude and how it applies to our art, inside our stories, and then as we're making them, braving whatever wrath we incur. I suppose also we should mention a little bit about how Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving, everyone. This is live streaming the day before.
Edition.
Yes, the Thanksgiving edition. I thought it'd be fun to have pilgrim hats, but I didn't have time to make any.
I was going to dress up as a turkey, but I couldn't fit through the door.
He left it out on the back porch. Is another great example of fortitude right there, where the Thanksgiving story of the pilgrims coming, and we can get into, I already mentioned the Puritans earlier. I think there's a grave theological fallacy that has done great detriment to this country with that puritanical mindset that's very constricting, especially for artists. But there's a lot to be said about their fortitude, the bravery that they had traveling across the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Was it like 3/4 of them died in the first winter or something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The ones who celebrated Thanksgiving were the survivors. They were like, yay, we survived.
Talk about fortitude to be able to survive and to keep going. And look, the country that they were the first English settlers, obviously. So the country that they helped to bring about, in a large part to found, has gone on to be the world's predominant superpower. Mm-hmm. So talking about being successful with their fortitude. Now, I don't want to give them the complete credit for that. I think the Spanish and the French and the Native Americans had a lot to do with being able to make that superpower. But maybe that's my bias coming in.
I'm offended.
Well, as you know, we are Mexican, we are Spanish, we are Native American. So I think all of that combined brought America to its superpower status. Mm-hmm. But that itself is a great example. The Pilgrims itself, what we celebrate at Thanksgiving, is a great example of fortitude.
Fortitude, yeah. It's a something I think that's oftentimes kind of just shoved into the corner, and you try to forget about it, because today it's oftentimes what makes people comfortable. You want to be comfortable, and you don't want to experience anything that will make you uncomfortable. So fortitude is a virtue that is kind of sidelined oftentimes today, and you sometimes need to undergo unfortunately, sometimes it's the hard experiences and those things that make you stronger. Mm-hmm. And the discomfort that you experience that matures you and gives you that fortitude, if you can keep on going and be stronger because of it. And when you said the topic fortitude, it kind of reminded me of Dan Crenshaw, not to get back in the political realm. He's a congressman, but he wrote a book recently. It's called Fortitude. So if you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check it out. But it kind of talks about what he has undergone to get where he is, because he has an interesting story. He was blown up in war, and then he went through this huge, really risky recovery process, and lots of people would have committed suicide or something like that when it looked that dark, and now he's in Congress. So that's a great example of fortitude, and that's something that you don't see today very often, and people kind of oftentimes would look at it as a bad thing, as dirty, because you don't want to have to undergo those things. You don't want to talk about anything that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's a great example. He's a great example. There's no shortage of examples we can look at. And that's why there's no shortage of good stories to tell. Mm-hmm. How can the folks find the extrovert, Pete? Can you pop that up for us?
Well, it's actually super easy. The extrovert, wow, look at that. It popped up.
The Extrovert Movie.
The Extrovert Movie. It's available on Amazon Prime. You can look it up on IMDb. Watch a couple of trailers.
Great. Well, thanks for showing them the ways. We are the Pineda Brothers, filmmaker artists. working to revitalize the world of Catholic art through our movies and books and graphic novels and you name it. But go ahead.
If you are on social media, we got the Instagram, the Pinedo Brothers on Instagram. And of course, you're watching this on YouTube, so subscribe to our YouTube.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Pete, for doing another podcast.
Thank you. Have a great one, y'all.